Hello everyone, I'm Sinclair from Amherst Media, and it occurred to me looking around the room here in particular that you might not necessarily know what it was we were talking about when we were talking community media or indeed open source. So I'm going to try and describe these things as best I can, but I invite you not to take these relatively brief descriptions as gospel. There's a lot of leeway in all of it and thinking about it. So in terms of community media and what it is, we are community media practitioners in that Jen and I at least work for what were once public access centres. In my case it's public access, educational access and governmental access. We have three channels showing these. And what we've been doing is changing perhaps, but I'd like you to think for a minute, when I say public access, what appears in your head? Just hold the thoughts, the images, the sounds, the noises, the smells that has with it, and we'll ask you to revisit them at the end of today's session, because I think that community media is really kind of incredible and an amazing place right now, and that we should all be very excited about it and embracing it. And when we're at a conference discussing media reform, it's kind of interesting to look and see how many of us are actually not from the mainstream, which might be the thing that we're interested in reforming, but working on the margins in some way. And yet at the same time, we're in the heartland of community media. It's the Connecticut, New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, they do have a Rhode Island community media. This is just Massachusetts. There's all of these are community media centres of some kind. We are being filmed at the moment by someone from a community media centre, I believe. Where are you from, sir?
I'm from Denver.
Denver? Okay. Excellent. Which is just off the map.
Western part of Massachusetts.
So we're surrounded by this. The weird thing is that there is this kind of incredible infrastructure. We're already pre-reformed media, if you like, founded by advocates of openness, of servicing the local municipality. If I said to you, in terms of starting a new media, would you like an established infrastructure that is non-partisan, non-corporate, doesn't editorialize, it shows government meetings in their entirety, promotes free speech? This seems pretty much like the kind of dream structure that everybody is searching for. And it's already there, and it's being funded to some degree, although it might be nice to have a bit more of that to make sure it's going on. So if you can think of a more ideal or vital situation, that would be nice. But for now, we can think about how this is possible. And it's mainly possible at the moment through cable fees. There isn't through the kind of misrepresentation often any money that comes to community media pretty much anywhere through taxes. It's a percentage of the fee you pay for cable, and as such it becomes a no pressure venue for arts, media, information and technology. And with the exception of government shows though, we don't really film very much ourselves as staffs. It's only when we are just members or volunteers or the people involved that are doing things. We're organisations that are trainers, facilitators. We want to get you involved by giving you the tools, the technologies, the techniques, so you can come and put the amazing things on the screens, whether they're television or online. And we want to do this in an environment where you're not beholden to ratings. It's not beholden to corporate media, because when you start thinking about that, all of a sudden you end up with things. The colour appears to be very off on this at the moment, I apologise. But if you do not know who this lady is, then trust me, you do not need to find out. But this memery that it represents and 90 million plus views on YouTube alone is showing you that oftentimes televisual media is about entertainment. It's about numbers. It's about whatever is the most successful thing by the amount of money it makes at the box office. And community media centres allow you to do so much more because you don't have to abide by these rules. It also is kind of like social media before the internet changed our conception of what social media was. So this is a collection of social media sites. I invite you to find me in all of them. I spent about 40 hours adding them account. I have not done this. There's a map of Amherst. We need to kind of push the two of them together so we have community media and social media meeting as one concern, because that's basically what we're doing, promoting localism that's true interactivity, there's creation, that's about somebody coming in and editing, filming, creating graphics, making a PSA, doing anything they want to do, learning and sharing with that. And as such, community media has this tremendous potential to help people in a community, to empower that community individually and as a whole to recognize who they are. And each of the community media centers is really unique because it is as successful as the people involved in it. And that is going to be the staff to some degree, sure, but it's really the people going in there who have the ideas to then translate in whatever way they are. And with the network of local centers across the US, we hope that they can be connected to and feeders for other organizations, be it the public media of NPR and PBS, be it lots of the other community level endeavors that you've been hearing about at this conference. Now, this isn't to say that there aren't some issues with all the things that we have here together. We are servicing so many people in so many different ways with tiny staffs and tiny budgets that it's pretty much impossible to keep up and fulfill everybody's expectations, which is often why it directly feeds into some of the things that might go wrong. And we are also narrowcasters. We have only at the moment, if we're on television, the local cable channels that you have the subscriber base for that. If somebody in Amherst goes to one of the colleges or lives in the wrong part of town or doesn't have cable, they can't watch our channels. And a lot of times, PEG stations, the public access, didn't really think about going on the internet. Now, we're faced with the opportunity, though, to connect with people in other ways. And increasingly, community media is about being online as much as it's about being on television. It's about using and embracing these ideas with I thought the first thought of this is maybe narrowcasting globally or narrowcasting locally, but I enjoy inventing new words you can't read in PowerPoint, so I call this broadercasting instead, because it is the narrowcasting to your local community, but it's also saying, I've made this film in this town, I'd quite like my friend to watch it in this town, or my parents to watch it on the other side of the planet. Wherever it is somebody is, we should be able to give them the message. And so, community media centers should be a testing ground for all of these new opportunities and ideas. And part of that is what we're connecting to the idea of open source. The principle of open source is basically to enable sharing to some degree or other. It isn't necessarily always completely free, but it's a freedom from the closed source, which is what you may encounter in various places. In the technology we have that we're using, in the things that corporations put out because they want to make sure they can make money from it. There has to be some connection to it. Open source allows people to interact, and if they don't necessarily think it works the best way, they can empower themselves and learn how to change it. And this can be, in many ways, something beyond technology. This is open source water that somebody's made here. It says in the bottles that it's been shared with passion under the same conditions, and it's been licensed with Creative Commons so that other people can share it when they use the correct Creative Commons license. Maybe you have open source water in your taps at home and you didn't know this before. Maybe your municipality has closed source water. It's worth checking later on. But open source is a kind of metaphorical and philosophical understanding as well. It can be the way you run the center you work in. It can be the way people respond to you, that they are coming and joining some greater collaborative endeavor, and they will be a part of it so that while they're benefiting from it, they can also lead the direction. And you can see here, this is open source embroidery, there's open source origami. It's basically a way to kind of test out all of the different possibilities one has. And what we're all going to now get into talking about is the things that then we can't do ourselves. Amherst Mass is not San Francisco. We're a tiny bit smaller, we have a slightly smaller budget with this as well. So one of the things about open source that's good is that you can use it in other situations, and we can find these things and we can help test them, we can help prove them, we can help develop them in those ways so that we can have them work in our situation. So the Open Media Project, the Drupal-based one, this is nested open source made for open source that Jen was showing you about Bayback. That's what AmherstMedia.org uses as well. And that's what a lot of community media stations around the US are increasingly using. And the main developer for that is here at the conference at the moment, so if you want to speak to him, come and speak to us afterwards. We can help you talk to him about it, or ask us for a slightly less technological perspective. But it's a really amazing set of tools that's designed specifically to run a community media centre, from the renting equipment to showing things online to helping people find a crew. And it was when we were involved in this that we started thinking about what other avenues we might have for connecting our community. And the great thing to do is to look around and see what's happening in your community. So localocracy.org was founded by 2 graduates from UMass Amherst. In fact, they were 2 undergraduates at UMass Amherst when they started it. And it's something that's designed for people in local communities. I think there's 6 of them now, and it just launched in Cambridge a couple of weeks ago, where you can sign up if you're a registered voter in that town, and your real name is put on the screen for all your comments so that you can interact. If you don't have a chance to go to all of the meetings, and as a station that covers government meetings, there are a lot of government meetings. It would be physically impossible to go to all the government meetings. So if you want to watch them on our channel, we're trying to incorporate this so that people can comment on localocracy, which also means we are not the filter for anything anybody says. It's somebody else that's managing it, because they've set up this incredible system which is built on open source Ruby on Rails. And we're thinking about using this too as a citizen journalism initiative, which a lot of people are talking about at this conference. And one of the ones that I only found out about relatively recently is made by a man we're lucky enough to have in this room. I'm going to introduce him. Chip, could you wave your hand there? Chip K is the person that created JC, which is a variety of different citizen journalism projects. I encourage you to speak to him afterwards if you're interested. Newsflow is the one that we're thinking would probably be the most sensible for us to start with. And what's great about it is he's designed it so it would work alongside Drupal or WordPress, which, if you think how many sites there are in the world that are built on WordPress, which is the easiest open source but still expandable web building software there is, I'd say Drupal can get pretty complicated, but that's because you can do anything with it if you speak to the right person. But there's 25 million WordPress sites already, and if you think about how many of these are people that are creating news in some way, and a blog is news, these are things that we can share, but you can be writing your blog in exclusion to the rest of the world. If you think of the different news outlets and organizations and community media centers in your area that could, in a similar way to what you've seen with My Road Community, aggregate all of this and share it, and have the editors be able to use the information from all these different sources and connect it together, we're going to need technology like Newsflow and the rest of the JC suite. And so we're very excited to start using this in the future. Another Northampton startup, Ground Crew, is about coordinating a crew of citizen journalists on a live map, so you can track them and see what they're doing. You can give them missions, you can deploy them in different neighborhoods, you get them speaking to each other. So they're people that you have, that they may be your volunteers, they may be your interns, they may be your staff, that are out and about in the community and can interact and send this news back to you. It's kind of the difficulty of all these projects is there are so many of them that it's really knowing which one to choose. And I reiterate, these are just ones that we found within 10 miles of our centre. If you go out into your area, because none of these quite work for you, you will find some too. So UMass Amherst starting a project called mCrowd, which is currently being used to help prevent invasive species attack by monitoring the flight of, I think it's the Japanese beetle, around Massachusetts to stop it from eating trees. And it was used to help in the Gulf disaster, as was Ground Crew for that matter. They're not technologies which are necessarily instantly ready for you to use, and a lot of times the people making them, because they're open source, are people that need our help, both to test and improve it, but also to finance it in the first place. So wealthy benefactors and venture capitalists, and I'm sure there's a lot of you in the room at the moment, we would appreciate speaking to you about it. But this is a graphic you cannot really see whatsoever. So this is actually a brand new shiny thing that we just started using last week. we are a community media centre that has a lot of video, and part of that video means that we've got some very full hard drives where, sort of nice, we couldn't really give our members a hard drive to edit on because it would instantly just fill up. So we thought we would buy an edit server, and then we looked into the price of edit servers and had a bit of a shop. And then I spoke to a couple of guys who were from Northampton, the town just down the road, and they said to me, I don't know if you can see this, they said to me, we're interested in helping you make an edit server. And they're basically like people who produce a film. This is the film that I recorded of them making it. And so instead of community media, it's community technology. These are the new producers. They did not have the ability to buy all this fancy equipment in the first place, but we did, so that they could assemble it and set it up for us. We would test it, and we've been using it for a week now, and my confidence is such that I can come to this conference without worrying that it will all fall to pieces. Partly because this is exactly the sort of thing, because it's open source, you can just take this video, show it to your local neighbourhood techies, and they'll have made it for you, and this is real time. This is the sort of thing where these people can now make them for other centres, and do so at a ridiculous fraction of the cost. We worked out that depending on how much they sell it for, the price of technology, this probably works out at least 1/5 of the cost of buying it. Like, that's the best that's the worst case scenario for it right now. So you could be saving tens of thousands of dollars because it's open source, because it's using the people in your community to help out, which is giving back and getting back all at the same time. So when thinking about open source and thinking about community media, we all want to encourage you to not only implement these things, but to surprise us and challenge us by coming up with new ideas, new concepts we haven't, or help us implement some of them, because a lot of it, well, what Jen's been showing you, what Anne's been showing you is in practice. It's stuff that we have to work with precisely because we're not paying for the people to come in and professionally install it and then lock us into a long-term support contract thereafter. So there are many possibilities and many wonderful things that can happen with this, and we hope that we've shared some of them with you, and now invite your questions. Thank you.